You are listening to the Enormocast.
To quote old headless Ned Stark, winter is coming, and you know what that means. Yes, it's time to unblock the number of that buddy who was still calling you to climb ice in June last summer and give in to your desire to scream and barf at the same time. Yes, ice climbing season is upon us, and though your fingers are destined to be both frozen and burning at the same time, your feet don't have to suffer so. Sportiva has a full line of big mountain boots, technical ice climbing boots, and boots that do nearly everything you'd want in the cold, cold mountains, short of apologizing for carrying you up there in the first place. So, if you must bash your feet against ice and snow, then check out Sportiva's newly redesigned website, sportiva.com, or your nearest high-end outdoor retailer for ridiculously well-made mountain boots, including such legends as the Spantic and the new Trango Cube GTX. And remember, when you support Sportiva, you support the Enormocast.
Winter is coming.
The royal we here at the Enormocast would like to remind you that there's 3 great ways to get shit you need and get the Enormocast a little something as well. Bonfirecoffee.com, enter Enormo at checkout for great small batch fresh roasted coffee. PeterWGilroy.com, enter Enormo at checkout for amazing climbing inspired jewelry and accessories for yourself or that special belayer. In belayspecs.com, enter Enormocast at checkout to just say no to belayer neck pain. And the great thing about supporting these companies is they are the little guy. In fact, a couple of them are just one person over there at that particular little company. So you're supporting them, they are climbers, you're supporting the Enormocast, and you're getting great stuff. It's a win-win-win. Very rare in this day and age. So please consider supporting them, supporting the Enormocast, and supporting all our sponsors with your patronage.
We gotta get
Listen, where are you playing in town? You playing here?
We're doing the Enormo Dome, whatever it is. It's terrific.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
big
big
house. We
place
sold
that
it out.
side of town. That's a
Very
big
nice.
place. You sold
What's
it
that,
out.
20,000 seats?
We
really should.
Look, you better get up there before you panic. Those pens are loose. You're very good. I have really enjoyed climbing with you. We'll make it. I don't think so. But we shall continue with style. Good weather, bad weather. Now or later, anytime is good for climbing.
Today's show is brought to you by Black Diamond Equipment, with support from Maxim Ropes.
And the fine folks at La Sportiva.
And now back to the show.
Hello and welcome to the Enormocast. This is your host, Chris Kalous. It is November 9th, 2016 CE, about 11 a.m., perhaps the first day of the dark times, the apocalypse. Perhaps, if you're listening to this in the future, if somehow you've pulled it off some frozen iPhone that you found under a layer of dirt and muck and crushed skulls, just know that we were good people. We did our best. We did our best. But our best wasn't good enough. Oh, yeah, and on today's show is Dave Allfrey. Dave, super stoked, young big wall ace, Dave Allfrey. Very fun interview with Dave. Also, I'd like to say that this is a bit of a companion piece to episode 110 with Shane Lempe. This is the guy that was on the trip up to Baffin with Shane. Also, a companion piece would be Haywire, the film that Shane made about the trip, about a 15-minute film that came out last spring. I also just stole that weird clip I just played from there. I look forward to hearing from Shane's lawyers. I don't know if you need to watch that or listen to Shane's episode before, but it would be a good thing to go back and review those things afterwards because they go together. Dave had a ultimately different perspective on that trip, and also was the guy that got hit by the big rock. And we talk a bunch about that, among other things. So it does stand alone, but both things also go together. So hope you guys enjoyed this one. I did. Dave is a totally awesome guy, and I really think that when we talk about how great the climbing community is, we are kind of talking about people like Dave. He adds a lot of psych and fun and good vibes to the scene. So don't have much else to say. A little bit speechless this morning. I know some of you very much appreciate the short intros, but hell, you probably skip this shit anyway. All right, let's get to it. Dave Allfrey. They're finally here, folks. The prettiest thing to ever be shoved in a crack. The new Black Diamond Ultralight C4. The featherweight camming champion of the world. 20 to 30% lighter than the old C4s, which means they're 20 to 30% more sick. The BD Ultralight cams are more lightweight than bailing off the nose because you ran out of baby wipes. They're more lightweight than that kid from Provo who fell in the campfire after 2 beers in Indian Creek. True story. They're the device that's oh so nice and the cam that can handle the slam. If you dream of climbing with different cams, you should wake up and apologize. So check out blackdiamondequipment.com for the specs on these little beauties, or head over to your nearest climbing retailer to fondle them with your own chubby knuckles. Put the cam down, sir. So you broke your finger aid climbing?
I did, yeah. I whipped just like on an easy route, going through the rope soloing motions, and I bottle opened it in a carabiner. It went in. And
what does that mean?
It was like it went into the beaner as I fell past it, and it just...
Oh, Jesus.
And it dislocated it at the middle.
A bottle opener, like...
Yeah, like a bottle opener.
Right.
Yeah.
Ugh. How'd that hurt?
No, it didn't really hurt at all. No, I had to put it back.
Mm-hmm.
I remember thinking, I guess I put it back now. And then I popped it back in place.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't a big deal. And then I looked at my hand, and while I was making a fist, I just watched my finger twist and turn and then pop right back out.
Oh.
So I had to put it back again.
Yes.
And then I had to bail.
Right.
So it was interesting. But no, it wasn't too big a deal.
No.
I mean, it's been a bummer, clearly. Like, it's been about 7 weeks. And
oh, was it recently?
Yeah, 6 weeks, no climbing. First time in 10 and a half years that I've done that. And then, so, oh well. Such is life. I've never been injured.
Right.
Like, getting hit by the rock in Baffin was the only injury I've had in 10 and a half years of climbing, really.
Mm-hmm.
So I count myself lucky in that regard, and, yeah, move forward.
Yeah. How's it feeling?
It's okay.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, it's huge. It's like, it's still really swollen,
Right.
but, no, I mean, it's okay. I'm starting to climb again, and it feels good. Like, crack climbing is hard, but crimping is okay. I think the tendons are all right. So
yeah,
it's just like torquing it and also fitting it because it's so big. I'm like, it's like I can like one finger jam purple Camelots.
Yeah, I was going to say it might be time to get on something like that.
The Optimator.
Right. We kind of rolled in before I pressed record. We were talking about aid climbing, which, you know, I have my own reputation in that. Some of it from the climbing, most of it from the aid rant. But yeah, I was talking about how I never really fell that much.
Yeah.
And it was kind of, I mean, I just like, because I watched the film about Ammon on
the Wings of
the
Steel.
Wings of Steel, that movie.
Yeah.
And like he's taking all sorts of whippers on that. Dave's dog Mouse is here, so you might hear him in the background. It's fine.
Okay.
As long as he doesn't start,
Sorry.
or she doesn't start super yelping.
I don't
it's
think
like,
so.
Well, you can hold her if you want.
Yeah, we'll see. She'll be okay.
But yeah, I mean, and then I watched that movie, and like, he's taking like multiple whippers. He's talking about him. He like dislocated his arm or his shoulder, I believe, on a whip on that thing.
I'm sure. That's how Ammon climbs. Like,
and it's scary because he's sliding down these
he
slabs.
wore like motorcycle armor.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's how Ammon climbs. You know, he kind of figures that if you're not falling, you're not pushing it hard enough.
Right.
And so he just kind of like pushes himself right to that point where you might fall or you do fall.
Yeah. I mean, I had to stop because I stopped at that point. I'm like, well, I can't take, because people are like, well, what's it like to fall on blah, 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 A4, A5? I'm like, I don't know. I do not know. You know, the whips I've taken have been shorter and, usually it was like because I didn't do something right, or it was like rushing or whatever.
Exactly. And that's what most of mine have been, where I've been hasty, and they've rarely been like actually like popping a piece on some A4 plus pitch and zippering the whole pitch. Like I've never done that, and I hope to God I never do that.
Well, my theory is no one ever has, but
yeah. No, I don't think that very
don't
many...
need to go around that that road. But
I think you're right.
Yeah, but so it's kind of fun because like you're like big wall climbing and aid climbing, speed climbing, whatever it is. It's like kind of been your thing for a while. Yeah,
it kind of has become my little niche, I suppose.
Right, again.
It's just a game I like to play. It's fun.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I spend most of my time free climbing, but like there's just something about going up, El Cap or whatever formation, like so quickly and so smoothly and so efficiently that you're just like climbing nonstop the whole time. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, wow, I'm on the summit. That was amazing. Well, should we have lunch?
Right. Well, and I think it's cool. I mean, I'm not a speed climber, and someday I swear I will go climb the nose, which I've never climbed slow or fast.
Oh, wow.
And I was joking with Shane, who'll play a little part in this podcast, that like my speed is my record ascent of El Cap is 5 days. Like that's my speed ascent.
Awesome.
And everything else was longer than that. Like, so I was like cooking along at 5 days, like, and I've never really approached it that way for various reasons. I mean, I would like to say it was because we were climbing, or I was climbing, because some of it was solo, like really hard routes. But then, of course, like the hardest routes I've done have, been done in 35 hours or, 26 hours or whatever else, the ones that took me 7 days. So, so that kind of pokes a hole in your ego a little bit. And then the only way I could accomplish free climbing, I thought, and I was probably right, without having been in the valley, like to train a bunch, was to free climb it, was to do it in 5 days where we could chunk it down to like a usable piece each day. You know?
Absolutely.
And I think to like do those 1 day ascents, especially free or mostly free, it's like you got to be down in the valley, like getting your stuff together and getting your systems dialed and climbing on granite a bunch.
Definitely.
So I'm impressed with it though. I'm not trying to diminish any of that.
No, I mean, it's
like
a bizarre kind of like asinine game to play, but it's a fun one. Like,
right.
I'm becoming a little less motivated for it in the last year, and even like looking to the future, I think that it might play a smaller role in the things that I really want to do, but I still enjoy it. And there's still some routes that I'm like, I probably would like to do that before someone else does it, or I'd like to try and do that route as quick as I can. But it's a good way also to like climb routes when you don't have a lot of time.
Right. Well, and also, I mean, the skill set that you have, like, period, it's not going away.
Yeah.
I mean, it's only an advantage when you are doing other stuff, where suddenly it's time to move quickly because of objective danger or whatever else.
Definitely.
It's like somebody else is like, okay, well, we can go a little faster, but all of a sudden you're just like pulling out tools and ways and things to like, all right, let's get out of here. Let's get off of this thing.
Yeah.
In a way that like I couldn't do. Like,
well, you could. I mean, like a lot of the stuff, like I've been doing a bunch of climbing. I was just in Squamish and like did a bunch of climbing where we were climbing, these big, like very moderate routes, like with my finger and stuff. Like my buddy was 5 months off the couch and we were climbing these big routes, but we were climbing them in like 2 pitches because we would simul climb and we would use an assortment of tactics to just sort of climb both at the same time continuously, but in a way that I really truly feel is like quite legit and safe.
Well, no, I'm not saying I couldn't do it in terms of like the climbing and being, and simul climbing. I'm saying like, I know how things like short fixing and whatever else works, and using a tie block occasionally to like, I know how it all works on paper. But if tomorrow you and I went climbing, every time I went to do it, I'd have to sit there and like,
think about it,
and then. What? We just lost the time we were trying to save because I'm up there like, okay, now wait, I put it. No, that's right. Okay, and then this goes here now. do I start? Okay, I guess I start climbing now. And then, but what is? Okay, no, he's gonna be okay because it would have to be that kind of thing. Like I could figure it out.
Yeah.
And by that time, I should have just waited and gotten a belay. For
Totally.
So that's what I
does,
mean in terms of you have those skills, like they're there.
Yeah, it does. It does help that I've done it a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
The time in is.
Well, one of the cool things I will compliment you on as well is that more and more that I talk to other people who've done these rad speed things of their own, it's like, well, who belayed you or who jugged or who whatever, and it's like, oh yeah, Dave did. Yeah, Dave Allfrey. You know Dave Allfrey? Yeah, he did. Oh, he was supposed to. He totally told me, but then this happened. And it's almost. I mean, I get like this feeling like you're down there in the meadow, just like anybody need me to like help them like go as fast as they possibly can. I mean,
I had a season where a couple years back where that was kind of what I did. I was in the valley for a whole October.
A little kiosk set up,
and
underneath El Cap.
I had a sign on my car that said, anything on El Cap, I'll do it. Like, no, and that season I did. I had a couple of things where like I got myself up onto the Prophet with Will Stanhope, and I belayed Jesse Huey for in a day ascent on the Free Rider, and it was cool because for me at the time, I mean that was 4.5 years ago, almost 5, and at the time I hadn't. I wasn't a free climber at that caliber, even close to it. I mean, I'm still not, obviously, like I'm no Will Stanhope or Jesse, but I just had never really thought of myself as being able to possibly like free climb El Cap, for example. Mm-hmm. And so it was a really amazing experience to be able to like go up there with them and see them in the moment in these like just, both of those ascents for those guys were like really raw, and they wanted they wanted to send so bad. And so it was really neat to get to watch that firsthand. I'd never quite witnessed like a desire to succeed at that level. And I saw it both times that month and was just like, wow, I want to try that hard. And so it kind of changed the way I looked at like trying hard, because I was like, if I could try that hard, who knows what I could do. Yeah,
for sure. And like, I guess I've known for sort of criticizing aid climbing in a sense.
It's so stupid.
But the other thing that I've never talked about, maybe as much, or maybe I've never mentioned it, is that there is this like it does sometimes form this wall where because it's really hard to if you're aid climbing and that's your mission, it's really hard to switch. Mid climb, people do it, and I did it. You bust out of your aiders, but you probably don't have climbing shoes on, and there's all these ways in which it's really hard to just be standing in aiders in this. Yeah. Like I always tell people that even on like the Tangerine trip, like I did that in winter, and so but you have to free climb here and there.
Yep.
On like 5.7.
Oh yeah, easy.
And I'm in my like boots, I was wearing like big mountaineering boots. And I'm stepping on edges that have drilled hooks in them. Where somebody like was hooking it because they were just not going to stop aid climbing. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so, but also mentality wise, there a lot of times it's just like you get kind of stuck in it.
Yeah, it's a weirdly difficult thing to be like. It sounds so easy when you think about it, but it's bizarrely difficult when you're standing in aiders, even if you have free shoes on and everything, and you're like, and now I'm going to free climb.
Right.
It's incredibly hard. Weird. It's just weirdly hard, especially if it's like off of bad gear or a hook or anything like that, right. Which it often is you're like, I'm hooking and I realize I can free climb now.
Oh God.
And you're just like,
I'll just keep hooking until you're like laying on the ledge, and then you stand up and you're like, I just free climbed.
Yeah. It was the act of standing.
Yeah, active mantling onto the ledge. You're like, I free climbed.
When we were in Baffin, Shane had a photo of me and I'm laying with my legs sticking straight off of a ledge. Same deal. I belly flopped onto the ledge, right. And I laid on my belly trying to get cams in because it's like the idea of even standing up was too great.
Yeah. But, well, have you ever seen that movie where Sean Villanueva O'Driscoll stands up and falls off the tepui?
No.
Oh, dude, you got to see that.
No, that sounds terrifying.
I think he says in it that he fully just like slipped, and he takes this terrifying whipper, just like He stands up and just like falls over backwards off this ledge.
That guy is amazing.
Yeah, well, yeah, he's a
That guy is
fucking
amazing.
madman.
He's
That's what he
insane.
is. Got to get him on the show, Sean.
You got
come
him.
on the show. And also, you know, I think that what you just said is interesting because so many breakthroughs you make in climbing, you know, come from like if it's not like a true mentorship in the sense that you know you were up on those walls, but like it is like this mini one day mentorship.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh yeah,
and
totally.
to watch someone like Will Stanhope, and actually Will talked about that on his show and like told me it was you down there belaying him, and I felt really bad for you because I was like, God, it must have been terrifying. Like, or was it? I don't know.
Yeah, no, it was. And I kept joking with him that like he needed me to go up there because he needed someone to haul his corpse off the mountain if something goes wrong. And like, you know, I like to keep it lively.
Right.
And so I kept being very
like gallows humor.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. But
But
I
at
mean,
the same
I think
time,
that,
you must have just been like, okay, if he falls now.
Oh yeah, there were
then
several
I'm gonna-
times
then
where
I'm gonna have to skate the belay, and then I'll do this, and then we'll have
definitely
him packaged up, and we'll like
check if he's past halfway on the rope yet.
Right.
You're like, can I just lower him back? Or?
Right. Yeah.
But no, and it can be really frightening. But I mean, you know, some of the stuff I've seen like Alex do is I just don't think about it. I just put it out of my mind where I'm just like, he knows what he's doing. I trust him 100%. I know that he is in control. I'm not going to think about it. I'm just going to like move forward. Cause it can be, I mean, if you really break down like the risk assessment, like we've gone into the red zone for sure a lot of times, but it doesn't always have to be like that.
Right. So, well, I mean, climbing the free rider with Jesse too is a different type of mentorship. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Much safer, but just like being able to watch him like maxing out end of the day, like trying so hard and like, that it's just awesome. It's awesome.
Well, I met you a couple years ago, I think in Vegas when HK and I rolled through on the way to Mexico. Yeah,
that's right.
And you know, it's like you have you're self-deprecating. You know, you have this like humility that. And I had heard your name, and I was like, okay, yeah, this guy, like, I definitely, you know, hear it trickling out of Yosemite and that sort of thing. And you kind of like, there a lot of times there is, like, with the SAR team there, you know, and you were on SAR for how long?
I was on SAR for 2 seasons, but then I spent another 2 seasons, like, kind of as like a guest member.
Right.
When I was around the valley, which was a lot.
Yeah.
But
and so, like, every era, every year, there's these names or these guys that are like coming out of that program, as it were. And so, you know, you're like kind of paying attention, you know, but you're like, part of me is always like, well, yeah, I mean, they have time to climb every day. Like, of course they're going to climb something rad, you know, but that's not always true. And that's kind of my jealousy as well. But yeah, your humility and your humbleness, you know, the phrase is humble to a fault sometimes. And do you ever feel like you're that guy? I mean, that you counted yourself short. Do you ever have you ever thought about that? Like, or am I like projecting some bullshit?
I think you're projecting onto me.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I just recognize that like, I'm not like, you know, I climb with Alex, but like I will never be even remotely as good a free climber as Alex.
Yeah, but you can't use that as your reference group, dude.
I think that could be part of the problem, I suppose. But no, I mean, it's like I'm just not. I mean, I'm an all right climber. Like I do well, cool. But like I just think like I feel like my friends would be like, "Are you kidding me? That guy's not humble. He sprays all the time. He'll never shut up."
Right.
But like, I don't know. I appreciate that a lot. I don't, you know.
Well, look, you are enthusiastic and you talk about climbing, and you're very willing to like go there, but I guess I don't hang out with you enough to know if you're just like talking about all the shit you've done.
If I'm actually like an arrogant dick or not.
All right, let's move on.
I don't think so.
Your dog likes you.
She likes me. That's all that matters.
That's all that matters. Well, cool. I just kind of was like building on that idea where you saw these guys doing some stuff and you're like, wow, maybe I can like achieve like those cats.
No, I mean,
that's just a normal progression too.
No, it was. I mean, no, that was definitely something that happened. Was like, I mean, the first time I climbed a big wall, I went and climbed Half Dome. And while I was laying at the base of Half Dome after like this epic 2-day ascent where we slept on Big Sandy and it was like, it was insane, you know, it was so hard. And so I am sleeping at the base, and these two guys show up like smoking cigarettes and like talking and laughing, and they start climbing, and I realize that it's Sean Stanley and Leo, and they had just climbed the free rider and came over, and they were doing the first free link up. And I watched them climb in the night and was like, holy crap, like, I want to figure out how to do that, because I just spent 2 days up there and that was terrible. And like they were halfway up the mountain in 2 hours.
Right.
And so, yeah, I mean, you know, you see guys like that in Yosemite, like whether you're on SAR or whether you're not on SAR and you're looking at the SAR guys or whatever, but you see guys like that and you're like, wow, there's a lot to learn here. And if you like grab onto it and you try and like figure it out, you know.
Yeah.
So
that's funny that that's a really great image, actually, that those guys were in the middle of that and they just kind of come rolling up, smoking cigarettes,
just
and like,
laughing, talking about how much fun it was and how they had to hide from rangers. I don't want to get anyone in trouble here, but well, I think it's been long enough. Yeah,
and there's nothing you can do to Stanley anymore anyway. Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, it's funny because you try to like, it made me think that like again, you know, we got this like we continue to get a lot of mainstream interest in big wall climbing. You know, the Dawn Wall like blew the lid off of everything in terms of that.
Definitely.
Although, you know, they've all gone away and stopped paying attention again. But you know,
not quite.
Well, and that comes with like all this stuff where there's all this mythology in climbing that we all bolster and hold on to.
Sure.
But then there's also all these like the way it should be and the way it is. And like I always, you know, the fact that these two who were actually among us the best and athletes, you know, are smoking cigarettes, like that would blow some like NFL trainer's mind. You know what completely. I mean? And like that they aren't just these like hyper focused like super athletes, you know? Yeah. And I think of a picture of like TC and Honnold on top of El Cap after, I don't know. Oh, the triple. Yeah. And like they've got their shirts off and like they've got the classic like sunken chests, giant 12 back. Like, you know, stance, and they're both got farmer tans and everything else. And it would be I always thought it would be so funny, like showing, like I said, like an NFL trainer or like these are the best. These two guys you see here.
These two skinny white boys are some of the most accomplished athletes in mountain sport history.
Yeah, and maybe all time history.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Yeah, perhaps.
And I'm sure that the dude would be like, well, give them to me. I'll show you what potential they probably can have, and maybe that is the case. Like if anybody starts really like scientifically training climbers, although it's happening in comp climbing to a certain extent. It is.
No, and I'm actually really interested in that stuff. I'm always trying to figure out more and learn more, and a lot of times it comes down to like not having the resources or the connections to like connect with some of those people, But yeah, I'm always fascinated by some of the training that's starting to happen and the way that, you know, not just training, but diet and nutrition and the whole deal is like really starting to like play in to climbing. And the funny thing is like we only like, I mean, you've been climbing way longer than I have, but like when did you ever refer to yourself as an athlete? Like, and that's the thing with the smoking cigarettes at the base of the route. It's like, that's because climbing, I think, has this other element to it where, like, it wasn't about being an athlete. It was about a lifestyle, and it was about this adventure sport that we love doing and that takes over your mind and your brain and your life as if it was like a drug addiction. And it's only recently that we've started being like, well, I'm an athlete. Mm-hmm. And,
well, I'm not.
You're not an athlete.
No.
No, you're a climber.
Yeah, I'm a climber.
Yeah, see,
sure. I'm sort of more talking about like
I'm a climber,
height.
and sometimes I'm like, man, maybe if I was an athlete, that would help. Maybe I need to like do some deadlifts and some pull-ups, and then that
would have helped you a great deal in Baffin.
I'm sure. Yeah, it might have. I could have hauled my broken corpse off the mountain a little better.
Let's seg into that. And I talked to Shane, and I'm not sure which one will come out first. Probably Shane's because I interviewed him first. But
yeah, sure.
But you have a film that's kind of making the rounds right now, or you're in it.
I'm in it. Yeah,
you're in it.
It's Shane's movie.
Shane's movie. Yeah,
we both filmed and stuff, but Shane made it.
Okay, and it's called Haywire. It's about a 15-minute thing about climbing in Baffin.
Yeah,
and
check it out.
It premiered at 5 Point. in
Yep.
my town, which I saw the premiere.
Cool.
And I told Shane this too. Like the reaction was awesome, and a lot of people were talking about it afterwards.
That's awesome. That's really great to hear.
Just and you know, and it was narrated by Shane, and kind of the centerpiece was his like growing reluctance to be there.
Yeah.
And just how like big and out there and kind of surprisingly like desolate and remote it was, at the same time totally beautiful.
Yeah.
And in the film, of course, there's you, and like you're a little bit of the opposite spectrum, although Shane talked a little bit about you guys. You know, the commitment level and everything else was definitely on both you guys' mind throughout the thing.
Yeah.
So talk your perspective on getting that trip going, why it was a dream to go to Baffin, and, you know, and rolling into it and kind of what happened.
Yeah. So, I mean, as a big wall climber, like as an aid climber, quote unquote, as a big wall climber, there's just, when I first started seeing photos of Baffin, I mean, there's just nowhere else like the junction of the Walker Arm and the Samford Fjord. It's like you're literally standing at the ocean and you're looking at 4,000 to 5,000 foot walls in every direction, all over the place. And like maybe 25% of the formations have been climbed and 1% of the potential routes have been climbed, not even. I mean, it's just an unbelievable spot. So I've always wanted to go. Finally, the opportunity came up with Shane, and originally Mike Lebecki and Shane and I were going to be a party of 3. Mike had to drop out for some various reasons. He felt really bad. He encouraged Shane and I to go. We decided to go for it. The two of us went out there, and I was really excited. I was extremely excited, and I think Shane was as well. And then I think as those final moments of the trip kind of came, he sort of hit some walls, which I'm sure he talked to you about. And for me though, I wasn't really hitting those barriers in terms of like being mentally in it.
Right.
I was like all in.
Okay.
I was ready to like full poker card. I'd had a couple of trips. The year prior, I had a trip which was amazingly similar to Shane's trip with me and Baffin. I went to Alaska with Sky to Trey. And I've never been so scared in my life. I've never been like so just over my head. And it was just out of my element, and I was totally freaked out. And so when I got to Baffin, I kind of knew what to expect in terms of like the cold and what I just like knew what it was. I just had mentally prepared for what it was going to be like. And so I was really psyched and ready. I don't know. I mean, where?
I guess that's kind of what I was wondering, and not wondering because he mentioned that, and it's, to me, I guess I didn't know Shane till the other day.
Yeah.
And I've known you, but even in the film, you know, it's like the two, there's definitely the two personalities on display, and of course it's the way it's edited, and it was part of the story.
That's definitely the editing was a big part of it, because from my perspective, like what I saw, like there were some impasses early on, like Shane missed his flight to get to Vegas, and that was big. I actually was like, I was so angry, I hung up the phone with him and it turned and punched a hole in a door at my house, because I was like, no, it's falling apart, it's all coming undone, and like I wanted to have success on that.
That's
trip.
A good way to end your
bad.
climbing season, by the way, just so you know. Punching holes in walls and doors.
It was ridiculous. But so then Shane showed up, and like, but as soon as Shane got there, like I knew he was stressed. He'd had a very stressful 24 hours. But like once we were on the plane, it was more like we both had the same anxiety. To me, it felt like we were having the same anxiety, which is that pre-trip anxiety, not like the, oh my God, I actually don't want to be here anxiety that I think Shane was actually feeling inside. So he covered all of that up really well. And so for me, like when I watched the video for the first time, I was amazed because there were a couple of times where I recognized the belay. And I was like, oh my God, he's having these feelings at that belay?
Right.
That was like days before I even knew that he was stressed.
Okay, yeah.
And then in hindsight, I felt like an ass because I wasn't as supportive as I could have been had I realized that he was stressed to that level. And so instead I was like, dude, you're sending too many text messages with the sat phone. Are you going to pay for those? They aren't cheap. And meanwhile, I've like sent one text to my poor girlfriend like every 3 days because I'm like, dude, they cost $1.50 a message. I'm already in debt. I can't send these text messages. And Shane's got like, a text chat going.
Right.
And one night he just looked at me and was like, dude, I do not care what they cost. I will pay for them all. I just don't care. I need to send a few messages. And I was like, okay, cool.
Right.
Cool. Sorry. Cool.
Well, that's awesome. That kind of stuff, you watch these films, all of them, and sometimes I haven't been, I actually know the inside story because I'm sort of close enough to the people.
Yeah.
And the video like is completely opposite. And you're just like, well, wait a second. Those two people hated each other, or whatever it happens to be,
Yeah.
But the promotion is that it was like the great, and everybody's like hugging on the summit and stuff. And watching Shane's film, he's talking about it and he's very positive, but I think even a bystander could probably start to wonder like, okay, because he talks about like there was the specifically going up to do the second route. That's when things were like probably at their sort of butting heads.
Definitely.
Most.
Yes.
But you have to kind of see it in the film. But as a person who's, I actually got into a full on like screaming, maybe could have gone to blows match when if we had not been a rope length apart on Proboscis when I went up and did that route, And it was just like stress and everything else. And we've been climbing too long because the sun never set. And like, we didn't notice that we'd been on the go for like 20 hours and like, it calmed down and we were good. But it was fun for me to watch and be kind of like, those guys are friends now. I'm sure they were friends through the whole thing, but I'm like, there's had to have been like some like,
yeah. There was definitely.
I don't want you to like
no. There's not like,
but that's just expedition stuff. That's like
expedition
super
stuff.
Normal.
Yeah. In my experience, I haven't done that many expeditions, but no, we had our moments where towards the end, once we had summited, we were really fired up. And at that point I was like, okay, next route, boom, cue it up. What are we doing? And Shane was kind of like, man, I don't know. Like, can we just have a breather? And it was like, no, we don't have time for a breather because we have this many days left and we're going to need them. And so I sort of dropped the hammer there and, had at the end of the trip not happened like it would, like maybe it would have been okay. And like, but I think at that point, like the stresses that Shane was experiencing had become like very real and they had become very large and he needed a breather. And I was we had our butting heads moment there for sure. When we were kind of like, we have 10 days left in the trip. Right. We have 8 days of food kind of, and let's go. And Shane was sort of like, dude, this isn't cool. And I was like,
and if you're like me,
I don't care.
If you're like me, you're just angrily racking up anyway.
Just totally. I was just like, what? Did you say something? I can't hear you. I'm leading. Put me on belay.
Yeah.
I'm going. I'm soloing or something.
Right.
So yeah, we had our butting heads moment. But Shane and I have been friends for several years now, and like we know how we're each different, and we know how to work together. And so that was a good opportunity, and I think we learned a lot, both of us. And I think that, I would go on a trip again with Shane tomorrow for, as long or as remote. And I think that Shane feels the same way. I hope he does. But I know that, I think it's ironic because the whole trip impacted him, I think, in a greater way than it impacted me.
Even though
I got hit. So
So let me ask you that, like, because Shane described it from his point of view. And looking down and thinking like he's dead. I just killed him. Yeah. And what was your point of view like? Yes. Did you go into shock? Did you?
Oh yeah. No, it was crazy. So, so what happened?
Yeah, we got to do that because not everybody may have listened to the other
episode. What happened was we had this great trip. We climbed a new route on the Great Cross Pillar on the Samford Fjord. And amazing route. It was an okay route, but it's an amazing location. So every route is amazing. And we descended and we did it pretty quick and we had more time. We racked up. We had one rest day. We went all the way back to the ice, had one rest day, and then went all 1,000 feet back up the mountain to this huge ledge. And from the main ledge, you're like essentially at the base of like El Cap. and from that big ledge. And so one of our routes was out to the left. It went up an obvious feature, and there was this just ephemeral, thin aid climbing route that was our original objective, but 900 or so feet up the wall, we couldn't see any features, and we just didn't want to have to like drill a rivet ladder for 500 feet. So we went with the other route, but now we had the time, we were poised, and I said, well, let's just go climb on that route and see what happens. And I led the first pitch. It was incredible. It was the best pitch I've ever done. It was 200 feet of like tipped out beaks. Just amazing. I've never seen a seam like it. Like it would be perfect beaks and get just thin and tipped. It was overhanging. I mean, from an aid climbing perspective, it was everything you dream of. Like just thin, intricate, and amazing, exposed and wild. And so I led the pitch, psyched. Meanwhile, I later realized that Shane was really down. It was really cold that day, like minus 20 cold. And it was really cold, super windy. So it was probably more like feels like minus 35 or 40 or something. And wrapped back down to the ground. And I'm setting up camp while Shane is still up at the belay because he had Jumar'd up to clean. So I wrapped fixed lines to the ground, went over and was setting up camp. Shane's up above, dealing with the anchor and the gear, getting everything re-racked and ready to go for the next day. And at this point, he later told me he was like very distracted mentally. He was just he had sort of hit his ultimate wall. The last straw had broken. And so I'm down at the bottom and I look up at the wall while I'm trying to set up the portaledge, and I realize that the wind is picked up and the ropes are streaming across the wall. And so I ran over to grab the ropes and tie him down. And right at the same moment that I ran over and went underneath Shane, because we're on this huge ledge, so we're like unroped, harnesses off, casual. And I run over, and right at the same moment, Shane realizes the same thing, and he's looking down. I come out from underneath him, and there's a big boulder that makes a cave. And so even if, like, you know, he might have looked down and not seen me and not thought anything of it, but it, like, at the same moment that he starts pulling on the ropes, I stepped underneath him, and the rope, completely blank wall. Like, we had just climbed the chossiest route you could ever imagine. The first route we climbed was like, we just threw nonstop amounts. I mean, metric tons of rock off the wall. And so I run over underneath Shane, and I'm holding on to the rope, the static line I had rappelled, and he's trying to pull up the lead line, and it just got stuck on a slightly larger than football-sized block. And he said he barely tugged on the rope, and it just flicked this block off, and it was about 50 feet above my head that it came from. So I didn't have a lot of time to react, and I just heard him yell, and I looked up and saw the rock, and I like tried to do like a white man can't jump leap out of the way, and I didn't move at all. But I think it was the thing that kind of saved me was I tried to jump, and I think I was actually airborne when the rock impacted me. And so I think I was sort of midair, and the rock just drove me to the ground. And that was where Shane was like, I watched you die, because the rock hit me and I went down to the ground. And for me,
ragdoll style.
Yeah, I just bam. And for me, all I remember is looking up, seeing the rock, trying to jump. And then I just remember, like, in the Haywire video, Shane did a thing where the camera went white and it makes this terrible ringing noise. And that is the exact thing that happened in my head, was like all of my vision went white. I don't remember like anything from that, probably for the next like 3 or 4 or 5 seconds. And everything went right, ringing in my ears. And when I came to, I was already like kind of hands and knees, like scrambling up the wall or up the talus. And then I got onto my feet and ran into the wall so hard that I fell over. I like smashed into the wall in front of me and fell over. And then I just started crawling and like scraping myself to get in the cave because I didn't know where the rock had come from.
Right.
And so I got into the cave. I sort of stood up at one point and ran through the cave and came around to the other side and sat down on this little step. And it wasn't until I sat there for, 5 or 10 breaths that I realized that I had just been hit by this huge rock. And so that was the point when I was like, oh my God, I got hit by a big rock. And then I thought, oh, I might have broke my back. I can't feel anything in my lower half of my body. And so I slumped down and laid down on the ground. And that was the only time, like it's been like minus 30, it's been cold. And that was the only time on the whole trip that I actually shivered, was when I laid down on the snow and got kind of shocky. And then I started to shiver. And Shane was like down by my side. And I mean, a minute, like almost no time. And it was just, yeah, he was like right there, ready to go and to help. And the series of events after I had laid down were actually kind of funny, because I remember being like pretty clear-headed and not feeling overly terrified. I remember just kind of like, okay, what's the plan? What do we do? And starting to run through the things. And I could tell that Shane was like freaked out, like I probably should have been. And, you know, because he had like watched the rock impact me, like, and he didn't know if it hit me in the back or on the head or what. And like, he thought for sure I was dead. And that must have been horrible. Like, I'm sorry that he had to witness that, because I think it was more traumatizing for him to see that than it was for me to get hit by the rock, because I walk away from it and I'm like, well, that was a really close call, but he has to like know. And he, you know, he kind of blames himself, but it wasn't his fault at all. But yeah, right. So then after that, like, Shane just was he was amazing. I mean, he got me all bundled up in clothes and food and water and all the necessities going, and I got into my sleeping bag and we kind of assessed the situation. And then once we made a plan, I mean, Shane took like 100-pound haul bag full of all of our emergency supplies, and he took 1,200 feet of rope. He had to Jumar back up the ropes that we had just fixed on the pitch. He freed those ropes. He came down. He realized that in his haste, he had fed them backwards on the rappel. He had like left it clipped in or something. So he Jumar'd back up again, came back down. So that's 400 feet of Jumaring in like a few minutes. Pulls the ropes, takes 1,200 feet of rope and like 100-pound haul bag, and starts and manages to like start fixing lines to the base. Mm-hmm. And so I just sort of came down slowly behind him, and we managed to get to the base that night. And then the next day, Shane went back up alone and cleaned all of our gear off the camp and wrapped and cleaned the lines off the wall. And I mean, it was like a monumental effort. I sat in the tent and watched him with binos and watched him coming down, and was just like, I just couldn't even believe it. You know, I mean, he came down with a whole expedition kit all alone. It was incredible. Like, I don't know if I could have done that. I probably could have, maybe, hopefully. Right. But it's like he did it so easily. Yeah. You know, and that's the kind of partner you want to have, you know? And so it was incredible. And
it looked like you died. It looked like your spine could have been severed. It could have broken your back and everything else. But what happened? What was the fallout?
I mean, nothing. I was fine. Yeah. I mean, I bruised things, and I got x-rays, no breaks. I got a second round of x-rays, no breaks. And I looked kind of like I was having a baby, but off my back. Like, my back right, was so swollen. I had like two butts, and I had these really like nice little muffin tops on the side, because my whole back all the way around to my belly was swollen essentially. And I mean, 3 weeks from the day that I got hit, I was hiking to the base of Half Dome with a guy to go climb the regular route on Half Dome. Uh-huh. And it was like a bit of a time crunch, and it kind of had to happen right then, and I had to go do it. And so it was pretty amazing. I mean, it's, you know, it fell down pretty soon after that. Yeah, it did, right, actually. So we got chased away, ironically. Like,
because I was about to joke, like, but because it wouldn't be there if you didn't do it right then. But then it turns out that it kind of was.
The thing was we were actually at the base, crazy situation. There were 14 people at the base, and we were at the base. I'm all raw about rock fall. I'm just like, the mountains are falling, right. And sure enough, we're at the base, and there's these 3 massive rock falls while we're at the base. And like, at one point, like a mini fridge impacted 10 feet to my side, while 14 people are running like psychopaths up the hill to get away. Mm-hmm. And so when that happened, I just looked at my friend and was like, we're out of here. I am not going up there. No way. We're out. And we bivvied up there, and then the next morning we took off. But right. And then I was in Rifle a couple weeks later, and I was standing in Rifle of all places, and Hayden was climbing around up above, like top roping and like swinging around, and all of a sudden, sure enough, just luckily I'm staring up and watching him climb, and he dislodged a huge block about the same size as the one that hit me. And I was talking with JT, a friend of ours, and he, I just like rock and grabbed him and kind of pushed him, and we both jumped. And I mean, the thing impacted right where we'd been standing. So at that point, I was like, man, I felt like I was kind of getting chased by rock falls. So yeah, it was a little intense.
You can put that on your resume. Choss magnet. Like, you will not get hit by the rock. My partner.
Yeah, no,
I will. Bring me along, and they'll just like magnetize these fucking rocks.
I think I've
in my
taken
direction.
care of it. Yeah,
really?
I think I've shaken the bad karma of the rock fall.
Okay.
I mean, I hope so. I have to believe so.
Well, the whole threes thing, you got your third one out of the way. So, Jesus,
exactly.
That's pretty.
It was pretty wild. It was like in
right.
2 months,
Right.
in 2.5 months, I had like these 3 massive, potentially catastrophic rock falls, and it makes you kind of look at this game that we play. And
well, actually, I wanted to ask you that, and maybe personality wise, this is a moot point. Or there is no like special answer to this question, but I like to ask people about like if there is any sort of residual impact to the way you look at the mountains or the way you climb or the way, were you able to just shake it off? Okay, it was, we both screwed up. I shouldn't have been there, blah, blah, blah. Or is it something that like, is it in your head, like when you screamed and ran away from the rock falling, which is a good, to be extra alert about that shit is not a bad,
no, it's not
a bad
thing.
Fallout from the
thing. No, like I don't think that it really, for one reason or another, I'm not sure why, but while I recognize that it was like a insanely serious situation and that I absolutely almost died. I mean, if that rock had hit me in the shoulder, it would have torn the half of my body off. I mean, the thing, if it was a sharp rock and if it hit me flat like a pancake, and if it would have hit me sharp side, I mean, it very well may have just chopped me in half. So like, no, I don't. I mean, yes, I do think it affected the way I look at things. I am more aware. I'm more conscious. I try and be a lot more cognizant of the potential for that to happen. And no, I don't think that it, I have not allowed it to stop me or hold me back, because I love doing this and I want to keep doing this. And I know that the rock fall and that all sorts of different things in climbing are dangerous. And I want to be aware of those things, but I can't allow that to stop me from climbing.
Right.
So, yeah.
And what about like, we just were kind of back and forth on the partner dynamics. And I've always found that, every big trip, and I haven't done that many of them, and nothing as serious as that. But whether you're even just traveling with somebody,
sure,
somewhere, you kind of, if you're aware and you're self-aware, you come back with a little bit of wisdom, about partner dynamics, about, like as simple as like, don't let yourselves get hungry, or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
That usually can.
Yeah.
But yeah. So what do you think like you brought away from that situation in terms of like the way you approach partner dynamics, or maybe your future expedition kind of things? And you hinted at it, but maybe you could put it into a little more crystallized.
I mean, I think just for me, like that was definitely an experience of where like I kind of should have been a little bit more aware of where Shane was mentally. And I could have been a little more helpful of that. And then at the same time, even if you are, there's only so much you can do as the partner. It kind of comes down to the person who's having that sort of negative experience. And I know, because I was there, like I said, when I was in Alaska, where I was just like, man, this sucks. I want to go home. And I ended up like forking out a bunch of money to change my plane ticket and went home like way early. But I mean, like with Shane, like I said, I mean, I would go climbing. I mean, I've climbed with Shane since, but like I would get on an airplane with Shane tomorrow, and I hope that he feels the same way about me. I think, if anything, it just kind of like allowed me, or it kind of gave me the opportunity to look inside and be just aware of how supportive or how positive or negative I am, whether it's like me being the positive guy or me being the negative guy. And so now I have a little bit more of an idea of how to like look inside and sort of just be aware of it, because there's not always, as a partner, there's not always necessarily a ton you can do. But, I could have been a little more encouraging. Hey, Shane, well, why don't you, go call Jess and talk to her for 10 minutes instead of being like, dude, that text message cost $1.50. I can see my bank account draining from here. And so,
Okay,
yeah,
cool. Right
I
on.
mean, you got to support each other out there.
Well,
and that's the key.
Like what he was going through, which is public record now on the movie and on the it was probably more acute and more severe than sort of normal like expedition blues and like days. You're just like, why the hell are we out here? But I was thinking, like, without the accident, without what happened to you, which in a million other alternative universes didn't didn't happen.
Totally.
It a lot of it really is, like, in my mind, like, from years of hearing about it and everything else, like, a lot of it is normal expedition stuck out there. You're running out of food. We've talked in here.
It's scary.
And you're also, like, you're getting hangry. Like, it's not easy to be in a super good mood when you're like starting to go low calories and stuff like that. I mean, you're freezing your ass off. Like,
we were eating like 6,000 calories a day or more. Mm-hmm. And it was the only thing that was keeping us warm. It was amazing to see, like, high powered food actually doing its job. Because, like, you kind of, like, I thought I knew, like, oh yeah, you're getting cold, you eat a bar, you stay warmer. But, like, this was on a whole new level where, like, you would get really dangerously cold, but then you could eat 1,000 calories and you'd just be like, oh, I feel great. This is amazing. And then 2 hours later, you'd be like, I'm starting to get cold, eat food. Oh, I feel warm. Okay, and as the trip went on, we started kind of realizing that. And so as we approached those moments where we were like, well, we can cut our calorie intake, but then we started thinking about all the times where you're like, if I just eat a single bar, I feel better for 3 hours. And so the idea of cutting the calories substantially got really scary because how cold we were was directly tied to the food. Right. So
anyway,
I think it was. I think it was kind of, a lot of it was the normal expedition blues, and I think staying happy on those trips is, like, one of the most important things.
You know what HK says?
What's that?
Can't put a price on morale.
No, you cannot. It's totally true. You're right. I mean, it's totally true, and that was a learning lesson there for sure, like, without a doubt. So, but man, it was a cool trip, and I can't wait to go back. I just can't wait.
So, is there some future?
Oh yeah,
possible planning, like.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, my big crux is just I want to get Shane to go back. Mm-hmm. Like, I would like my next trip to be with him, whether it's with other people as well or not. I want him to be there. I would very much like that. And so, Shane, come to Baffin with me. Yeah, I mean, if I can, I'm sort of trying to figure out if I can go again this year. I don't know if I'll go in May again or go later or what, but, like, I have to go back. I mean, it was amazing. I don't necessarily want to climb on that same route or the same wall, but it's incredible.
Right.
It's the kind of place where, like, aid climbing is, like, a pretty ridiculous game. To me, I'm like, and I've never been that into aid climbing on anything except the biggest formations I can find, because otherwise I'm like, yeah, whatever. I don't go to the crag, and, like, I'm not like the guy in Joshua Tree that does, like, the A4 traverse on Intersection Rock. Like, I could care less because it's all about the location for me. So climbing on El Cap, it's an amazing location. The different spots on El Cap, you get to kind of experience the little nooks because it's El Cap. It's right there. I mean, I lived, like, in the Bay Area for my whole life mostly. So going to Baffin is the kind of place where when I look at it, I'm like, this is a place to aid climb. Like, this is where aid climbing makes sense because you're trying to climb these massive, overhanging, unclimbed formations. And it's like, you can't free climb. I mean, unless you're Sean and Nico and Ben Ditto and them, but, and Oliver. I don't want to forget about him, but yeah, I mean, but I mean,
the objectives they were choosing in that film, which will be in the Real Rock tour, it's like they were definitely they weren't, like, just picking the steepest, most smooth thing like an aid climber can.
Yeah, like you can aid climbing, and that's what we were trying to do. You had to kind
of go around the fringes and do the
in Baffin, like, there's these 4,000-foot unbroken walls that are overhanging the whole way, and so as an aid climber, you can just be like, I'm going to quest up that vertical sea of granite,
Right.
and it's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
And so it really lends itself to it. So like as a big wall
Plus,
climber,
it's pretty
I love
cold.
it.
It's definitely
Yeah.
hard to have those digits
Yeah,
out. And that's,
it's cold.
again, that film that'll be out this fall, maybe by that time this is out, is, they're climbing, like just freezing their hands off
Yeah.
and everything else.
Oh, yeah, I
and
can
they
only
had,
imagine.
I think, way better weather than you guys did. 'Cause
Yeah,
they
went-
weren't there in the winter.
Yeah, they were there in the summer, and
they
we were there
floated
in
in.
May. Yeah, they floated in, and we went in on snowmobiles, and we
right.
slept on the sea ice, and they like went in on the ocean. So
Well, it'll feel pretty good, too, for you to be on the airplane, knowing what's, knowing how to deal with,
what's
what
there.
was that guy's, Levi? Like
Yeah.
knowing how to like take care of business when you get there.
Yeah.
Which was, of course, what Mike's role was supposed to be.
exactly, yeah,
And-
we were supposed to have
yeah.
a handhold.
Right.
It was like
he's been up there 6-7 times or whatever.
Yep,
so
exactly.
He's like walks into town and I'm sure they're all like, hey.
Yeah, Mike, good
Yeah,
to see you again. No,
yeah.
yeah, he knows everyone,
Yeah.
and he
now
helped us
but
out.
now you're on that. You're going to be able to at least step off the plane and be like, okay, here's what we need to do. I know
Yeah.
what this has to happen, and that's going to change everything.
Hopefully,
Yeah.
we'll see. Yeah, hopefully.
I mean, the climbing's still the climbing.
Yeah.
And that's the variable, but at least you got these other things maybe a little bit more on lockdown.
Yeah, absolutely. No, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a big. I've never done as much learning as I did on that trip. I mean, it was really amazing. So that was huge, and that was one thing that the getting hit with the rock like provided Shane and I was 2.5 days to sit in our tent and talk about every detail of every single thing, and it was in those conversations. In and out of like a morphine stupor that we were able to really like discuss all the details, about it, make food lists. How much food do you need? Like how much salty, crunchy snacks do you go through like on a month-long trip? How many bags of M&Ms do you need? And, so we're really able to apply a lot of like introspective learning to the trip, where had we just finished a second route, gotten on a snowmobile, gone home, parted ways, him to Yosemite, me to Las Vegas, we would never have internalized it like we did. And so that was a really amazing experience.
Weird fringe benefit.
Yeah, totally.
Awesome.
So,
Well, cool, dude. Thanks for sitting down. We just blew out an episode right there.
Wow, that was it.
You were a little
Amazing.
worried that we wouldn't have anything to talk about.
I just had my doubts.
Right on. Cool. Well, thanks a lot for sitting down, and man, I wish you the best of luck with
No,
this
thank
stuff.
you for having me on. I appreciate it. Really, really appreciate it.
I think you have the potential to walk in the same sort of footsteps that like Lebecki's been in, and
Oh man,
becoming an expedition master.
Holy cow. I don't know, maybe. Wow.
All right. Well,
thank
keep,
you.
We'll keep an eye
I
on you,
appreciate
dude.
it.
And be safe out there.
Yeah, of course.
Look
Yeah.
out for those fucking
Watch out for
rocks.
flying rocks. Sometimes they have wings.
All right, folks, thanks for listening, and thanks to Dave for sitting down. He makes you feel good about climbing, doesn't he? He's the right kind of partner, that guy. I'd also like to note that since recording this, Dave has been picked up by the North Face team, so his professional climbing career is taking off, and though this wasn't out yet, I think that the fact that he'd done an Enormocast was, in fact, in the ether, out there in the universe, and I'm going to go ahead and chalk this up to the Enormo bump. So you're welcome, Dave. You're welcome. I haven't talked about the finances over here at the Enormocast in a while, but please consider the fact that donations still outstrip the sponsors in terms of funding the Enormocast. So if you find value in this program, if it gets you through the day, through the work day, on that commute, on that long road trip, whatever it happens to be, and you feel like kicking down, head over to enormocast.com and click on the donate tab. There is also a donut tab. You click on that and you get a free donut. Anyway, click on the donate tab, donate a little beer money, or go bigger. Whatever you feel like, baby. Just do what you feel. But if you don't have the means for monetary support, there are a bunch of other things you could do if you click on the Help Out tab. A little bit of time is all they take. Just a little bit of time. You know what else takes only a tiny bit of time? Checking your knot. And folks, remember that's just the first step in the system where you agree to take care of your partner. Because by taking care of yourself, you are taking care of them. You are no good to them. broken in pieces and laying on the ground. Does that make sense? So check your knot, check their knot. And like any good relationship, make sure you're communicating. And then before they leave the ground, give them a big goddamn hug. Is that your well-dressed knot, or are you just happy to see me?
Feel pretty good. And I'm not scared at all. I just feel kind of invincible.
Me too. I got a very positive attitude about this.
Good, me too.
Yeah.
It's getting hot in here, or is it just me?